Something extraordinary is happening inside President Trump's Justice Department, and the legacy media is doing everything they absolutely possibly can to hide what it all really means from you. There's nothing short of a massive purge underway right now as we speak inside the DOJ. And while CNN and MSNBC are spinning this as Trump's revenge tour, the truth is far more compelling and far more important for the full and decisive restoration of American justice. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the far left desperately tries to stop the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age that you are making happen all over the world. So if you want a front row seat on how you're changing the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Trump appointed U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan, the former Miss Colorado finalist and Trump lawyer, is taking no prisoners. As we speak, she is systematically removing career prosecutors from the Eastern District of Virginia, one of the most powerful prosecutorial offices in America. Now, if you don't know, the Eastern District of Virginia has long been a fortress of the administrative state. So when Halligan arrived to lead the office, she encountered immediate resistance from entrenched prosecutors who opposed bringing charges against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, these weren't minor disagreements about prosecutorial strategy. These were fundamental refusals to investigate potential criminal conduct by politically connected officials. We've talked about this before, but one of the unwritten rules of being a member of the permanent political class in D.C., of being part of this bureaucratic elite, is that you're above the law. You make the rules for others, but those rules do not apply to you. It's one of the perks of being a part of the permanent political class. So when Halligan assumed the position of the new U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, she frankly shocked everyone involved when she announced that her office would indeed prosecute both Comey and Letitia James. And when some of the senior prosecutors rebelled, she sacked them. And we're talking some major players here. So, for example, senior prosecutor Maggie Cleary, who briefly led the entire office, she was among the first to go when Halligan presented the Comey indictment in court. Cleary, she reportedly staged a silent protest by sitting in the back row of the courtroom rather than at the government table. It was just, from what I understand, it was just a petulant display of insubordination that would have been unthinkable in any properly functioning organization. Well, now, of course, she's gone. She thought the rules didn't apply to her, and now she could think about that all she wants, standing in the unemployment line. But Cleary, as it turns out, was just the beginning. The purge accelerated when Halligan discovered something even more troubling and something even more nefarious: systematic leaking to the press. Now, two veteran federal prosecutors, a woman by the name of Beth Jussie and Kristen Bird, were terminated after resisting the Letitia James indictment. Now, according to sources, they were escorted from the building. They were stripped of their security clearances, not merely for opposing the case, but for they were found to have leaked sensitive information, of course, to MSNBC, as well as to a reporter, a fellow by the name of Ken Delanian. He's a reporter previously connected, if you could believe it, to Fusion GPS. Does that sound familiar? Fusion GPS is the opposition research firm behind the discredited Steele dossier. Remember, it was the Steele dossier, named after the former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele, who helped fabricate it. That dossier was deliberately used by Comey to get FISA warrants, I believe on 4 separate occasions, for the FBI to spy on Trump while he was both a candidate and after he assumed presidential office. even though Comey knew it was a crock of crap. He knew it. He knew it was a completely fabricated dossier with a bunch of lies about Trump, and none of them has ever even come close to being corroborated. He didn't care. It was there to help launch a Russian collusion investigation that would itself cover up Comey's corrupt handling of Hillary Clinton's classified documents scandal. So in classic projection fashion, the deep state fabricated a scandal to cover up a real one that they were involved in. So closing the loop here, there were attorneys in that Virginia office who were leaking information to far-left outlets like MSNBC, as well as this reporter who has connections to the very opposition research firm associated with that Steele dossier and the whole Russian collusion hoax. And so this reveals, I would argue, the real scandal here. The real scandal is a network of government lawyers using their positions of power to funnel information to friendly media outlets for the purpose of shaping public narratives, which are deliberately framed to undermine legitimate investigations. You have to let that hit you. Let me say that a little bit more simply. This is because I think it just underscores how swampy DC really is. The very legal divisions entrusted with enforcing the law are the very ones doing everything they can to undermine the law by feeding out all of these leaks that create narratives that obstruct the law, all in the name of protecting themselves and their fellow career bureaucrats who believe they're above the law. If ever there were an accurate descriptor of the swamp, there it is. The very government departments tasked with protecting the law were undermining the law so as to protect those they believed to be above the law. But that's only half of it. If you can believe it, it gets even worse. You want an inside look at what it's really like being a member of the Courageous Patriot Club? Well, I'm giving you that chance completely and totally free. It's called Turley Walks, and it's your exclusive preview of the community that's bringing faith, family, and freedom to life. Think of it as me tagging along for a few short talks, sharing stories, hope, and a bit of perspective in the middle of all of this craziness. Just head on over to turley.pub/Turley Walks. It's free, it's simple, and I'll see you there. Remember, liberals today are dedicated to something called anarcho-tyranny. It involves the selective application of the law against political enemies. So both permanent bureaucrats as well as those, who check off the boxes that make up left-wing identity politics, they can basically get away with anything. They can get away with murder. I mean, literally. All the while, Republicans and those associated with MAGA are subjects of unprecedented legal warfare. That's anarcho-tyranny. And so it's hardly surprising that these same prosecutors who just got fired because they refused to aid in the indictment of Comey and Tish James, it won't surprise you that they reportedly had no problem whatsoever participating in and supporting the lawfare against Donald Trump. 4 criminal indictments, numerous civil cases, attempts to remove him from state ballots, and carefully timed document releases designed deliberately to influence the presidential election. For example, Judge Tanya Chutkan specifically authorized Jack Smith to release extensive reports before the 2024 election. Yet these prosecutors now claim investigating state officials within 60 days of an off-year election crosses some sacred ethical line. I mean, it's just beyond pathetic, and nobody's buying it anymore, obviously. So circling back to these leaks, Halligan's response was unequivocal. She issued a public statement declaring that those days are over, that the Eastern District of Virginia enforces a strict zero-tolerance policy on the unauthorized disclosure of information concerning ongoing investigations or cases. And she added that such leaks will be investigated to the maximum extent permitted by law. In other words, the days of legal officials leaking information to promote narratives that deliberately thwart and undermine the law, that undermine due process in order to protect career bureaucrats are over. Again, the last people on the planet who should be leaking anything are those supposedly concerned with the rule of law. And if you can believe it, the firings continued. It went beyond those two leakers, Jussie and Byrd. A number of career prosecutors were also terminated after the Comey proceedings. In total, approximately 6 to 8 prosecutors have been removed as Halligan continues to reshape an office that's become functionally resistant to accountability for politically connected officials. Now, the active, radically partisan resistance that was just uncovered within the Eastern District prosecutorial office raises some pretty profound questions about federal governance. Should unelected career officials be able to nullify the prosecutorial priorities of elected leadership? So if a duly elected president wants his Justice Department to go after career bureaucrats, do unelected career officials have a right to deliberately obstruct that? Should government lawyers with security clearances be permitted to leak information to journalists in an effort to deliberately shape the outcome of legal cases? And should prosecutors who refuse to investigate certain officials based on their political affiliation and connections, should they remain in positions of public trust? All of these questions are coming to the fore with all of this, and the answer to all of them, as far as the Trump administration is concerned, is an unequivocal no. Hell no. Yet again, if we take a step back, this is precisely the system that developed over decades of institutional drift, where powerful bureaucrats operated as a parallel government insulated from democratic accountability. That's the government that the legacy media is doing everything they can to defend. Halligan's house cleaning exposes the uncomfortable reality that much of what we call the rule of law and democracy has actually been the selective application of law based on political considerations and the democratic deliberation of an elite few, not the people. When prosecutors refuse to investigate officials like Comey or James, while enthusiastically pursuing cases against Trump and his associates, they're not defending legal principles. Obviously not. They're enforcing a political hierarchy, anarcho-tyranny. So needless to say, the purge in the Eastern District of Virginia represents far more than personnel changes. It's a fundamental challenge to the administrative state's claim that career government officials should operate independently of elected leadership. It's a claim that sounds pious and principled until you recognize it's just a justification for unaccountable power. The only ones that these bureaucrats are ultimately operating independent of is we, the people. And so as much as the far left illiterates over at the legacy media outlets like MSNBC want us to believe that this really is all about Trump's revenge, the real story is far deeper. It's the exposure of just how thoroughly corrupted our justice institutions have become, how aggressively that corruption will fight to preserve itself, and how MAGA is finally and decisively draining the swamp.